I wish we could have Kirk Cousins, Josh McKown, and DeShone Kizer in our QB room.
Holy shit! Cleveland Brown fans, we are in week 15, which means we're only 2 weeks away from the best part of the season, which is preparing for the draft. So welcome to Here We Go Cleveland podcast. I'm your host, Bill Hebel, alongside my good friend and co-host, Michael Zappa.
Hey.
We're finally back on track. 2 podcasts in a row. We're just like Eli Manning, you know, we took a bench spot and, now we've started, 14 of the last 15 Browns weeks with the podcast. So
what a shit deal he got.
Oh
that
man. How do you feel? How would you feel? I mean, for what? And the coach got fired a week afterwards and Geno Smith just like, if I was him, I would just come into, I wonder what he was like on that. What do you think he was like on that practice, week before the game? He just stand on the sidelines, and if coach asked him to come in for scout team, he just stood on the sidelines still, just didn't move.
Well, originally I heard that McAdoo or whatever ran it by him and said, "Hey, the season's going nowhere. Do you want us to see what we have in Geno Smith?" And you can, and he agreed to it. But then after all the backlash, it seemed like, and that made sense to me. It would make sense to me to be like, hey, there's 4 games or 5 games left in the season. We're not going to make the playoffs. Eli, you're our franchise quarterback. If you want, we're not going to hold it against you if you want to take it, just help the team from the sidelines. Because we don't want to risk you getting injured, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't seem like that was the case. So, it stinks because, I'm a fan of Eli's, and I think it ruined a streak that didn't need to be ruined. But
right,
anyway,
I don't know.
Bring Eli to the Browns next year.
Bring him to the Browns.
Yeah, bring him to the Browns.
I think your boy Lombardi interviewed Ben McAdoo when he was with the Browns, and he said that he could tell at that time that he was not close to being an NFL coach. So
shout out to Mike Lombardi.
Shouts to Mike Lombardi.
Yeah. If you didn't know, he has a special cameo on season 3 of Ballers.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does. So he acts as the GM of the New England Patriots because apparently they called Bill Belichick. I just found this out this week from
this is breaking news, everybody.
The mutual friend that Mike Lombardi and I have.
Okay.
And she said that he had a cameo there because they called Bill Belichick and asked him to be in 30 seconds of Ballers, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Does it surprise you that Bill Belichick does not want to be in a show Ballers or in a show at all? So anyway, he took his spot, but. Yeah. So anyway, moving on from him.
They were like, Bill, you have to wear this new sweatshirt. We threw it in the wash. He's like, I can't wear my old one. No, Bill, you did.
It has the full sleeves. No. Yeah. he has to have the 3/4 length sweatshirt or half sleeve.
Right. You think sleeve. Do you think he does that, or do you think an equipment guy just comes up with these variations? Is now, Bill, this arm. This week is 14 inches long, and then your right arm is 7 inches long, and then I went with a weird parabola on your neck for this week.
I think that Bill has his clothes laid out for him by someone on the training staff, and as soon as they're laid on his desk on game day, he just takes a pair of scissors through them and just dices them up as he wants them to be. I think it's a new sweatshirt or new whatever every single week. And he just destroys it. It's brand new.
Maybe he just wears the same thing all football season, and we never know.
He could do that. He could
honestly do that.
Yeah. So.
All right. So Wow, that's the first time we've talked about a lot of other NFL stuff.
I know.
Outside of the Browns this entire year, but let's get into it. Let's start with a little quick recap of the punted away Green Bay loss. That's my takeaway from it, is that we literally punted that game away, because if you look at in my opinion, the play that changed the final score and the final outcome of that game, it's the punt that we had late in the fourth quarter that set up the Packers' game-winning drive, or I guess game-tying drive, sent it into overtime. But if you look at that play, if we punt the ball out anywhere than right down the middle of the field, I mean, even if it goes out of bounds at the Cleveland 45, then you still have Brett Hundley trying to make a throw from, say, the 20-yard line to score a touchdown to tie the game, instead of him just basically like QB sneaking over the goal line to tie the game. I mean, at least we can start to bring some of these games down to like a handful of plays, instead of like, oh, our offense was just completely trash.
Yeah. I can honestly say I had not thought about that point until just now when you brought it up. And it is such a good point, because
there's like minute and 40 seconds left to go or something like that.
Yeah, maybe even less. And I was so hung up on that. And everyone that has listened to this pod knows that I'm a huge Kizer fan. I just think he has it. I think that he's super mature. I think that he between the ears has everything you want, but he needs to clean up some things mechanically and make some decisions better. But anyway, I was so hung up on that last interception, because I was like, oh my God, Kizer, you played such a good game. And now it's just completely destroyed by that one pass that you made. Like, the pass at the end of the first half, who cares?
Yeah,
he was trying to make a play, no big deal. But the point that you just raised, it should have never gotten to overtime.
Exactly.
I mean, that at the end of the day, Kizer did enough in 4 quarters to win that game.
Yeah.
I mean, and it just shouldn't, either we should have gotten a first down, like that dropped pass by David Njoku for the first down.
Right.
Should have caught it. There's no reason he shouldn't have caught that ball. And, it just should have never gotten to that point, but everyone's so quick to just kill Kizer for not being able to get it done. And trust me, that one play, we've talked about it, I think, every week. Right. There's 2 or 3 plays that no matter how well Kizer plays, you just remember, like against the Chargers, he had a pretty decent game. I'd say average game. Like, he didn't have but then there's just 2 or 3 plays where you're just like, come on, man. You can't make that call. You can't make that play. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was like some film reviews of what he had open. Uh-huh. And if Clay Matthews doesn't hit his hand on, like, before he's able to follow through.
Right.
He had 2 wide receivers. I don't know who he was going to. He was either going to someone up the left. He was either going to Higgins, which was in the middle of the field and had probably 2 steps on the defender.
Right.
Or if you watch the replay, Crowell did like a wheel route and he was running up the left sideline. Yeah. And he was there wasn't someone in 15 yards of him, but I really do. I mean, but
he's got to make at that point, you're arguing like, well, can Kizer make he had to make a pretty damn good, like 40-yard in the air throw. Yeah. Rolling out to his left. Anyways, so I mean,
do you know what the down in yardage was on that play?
Give me like 2 seconds. Bullshit for 2 seconds and let me figure it out.
Well, I think I remember what it was, but if my memory serves me right, but
it was 3rd and 2.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it says so. The official stat is that it was intended for Seth the Valve, whatever that means.
Okay, because that's what I thought that it was.
Yeah.
And to me, that says to me, look, DeShone, you don't have to score a touchdown on this play. Even if you throw it out of bounds at this point, we still have a 4th and 2, which is manageable. And those are the things. It seems like every time we have this conversation about DeShone Kizer, it's because he cares. It's almost like he cares too much. Like he puts too much on himself, and he feels like he has to do too much that whatever he tries to do ends up backfiring. And that's what I thought the down in yardage was 3rd and 2. And because it's just like, okay, worst case scenario, throw it out of bounds. We got a 4th and 2. Right. I can live with that. I can live with a punt at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, based off the alternative, hey, you didn't turn the ball over. You played the field position game, but that was it was so tough because that was the first game, which I'm embarrassed to say, but that was the first game all season that I have not moved from my couch from the kickoff to the final tick. And because all the other games I've been on the radio, listening to partial on the radio or watching some or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I invested my whole entire afternoon in that game.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh. But the other, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I listened to it all on the radio because I had the, whenever the Bengals play the Bears, and I'm in Columbus, and that Cincinnati-Chicago region just completely eats up like all of Southeast Ohio. So I had to listen to it on the radio, and I honestly, when Jim Donovan started describing the punt return, I honestly just couldn't believe that it was actually happening. Like, he first started saying like, we punted from like our own 20 or something like that, and no, we were in, or we were on our own 30 or something, and he punted it, down to the 10-yard line, and he first started saying like, oh, he's at the 20, he's at the 25, hit the 30, and I thought like, okay, like we're gonna wrap him up like by midfield, and then it just kept going. It was like the Browns they could not have shot themselves in the foot worse than that play right there.
You gotta love Jim Donovan, right? Because you never know from the second he starts calling the play, whether it be a field goal, whether it be 1st and 10, whether it be 4th and 10, whether it be a punt return, kick return. You never know until the play is over what actually happened. Like you would never be able to tell in the inflection in his voice whether things are going well or going bad. Like during that play, I'm sure he was like, he's to the 30, he's to the 40, he's to the 50, back to the 40. Like I can just imagine that happening because every time I've listened to him on the radio. I love the guy.
Yeah, he's great.
I think Cleveland fans are so fortunate to have him because he's so engaged and so involved in the Browns. But it's just like you never know until the play is completely over and the whistle is blown what is actually going to happen. There's no foreshadowing whatsoever.
Right.
But anyway, I just, I cannot believe that game was lost. I have a lot of questions. I mean, like the first half, Corey Coleman and Josh Gordon were on fire. The second half, it seems like they didn't get targeted much at all.
Josh Gordon didn't have a catch after his touchdown catch, so.
Yeah. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think that it's that Green Bay's stud corners that were shutting him down. I think either there wasn't plays designed to go his way or Kizer just was looking elsewhere. So that stuff I question a little bit, but hey, at the end of the day, we're this late in the season. It's like a loss is a loss. I mean,
I think everyone on the coaching staff too. Now that you say that, I can't remember too well, but was Gordon just like kind of sent deep on every play after then, and he just wasn't, as soon as Kizer saw that, he's got the safety over top of him, he like automatically looked elsewhere. That could have happened on like 80% of Gordon's plays. Cause I mean, if it's one thing we know about, it's that other teams can adjust really well against the Browns, and the Browns don't really seem to make too much, or at least they're very slow in their adjustments, compared to other teams, especially after halftime.
Well, and I don't like to blame the refs for any loss, especially a loss that you're winning by 14 points going into the fourth quarter. But that, I don't know if you remember, but there was a deep ball literally on the Browns, it would have been the Packers goal line to score on the Packers. And Josh Gordon was clearly there was a clear pass interference, like as clear as day that he didn't get, and he almost still caught it, but he didn't even have a shot at it because of that. And I think that might have been at the end of the third quarter.
Is that when he got tripped? Or that was a different play?
No, yeah, that was a different play. It was literally just a 40-yard bomb, and there was clear pass interference, and Kizer. The ball was good, but Kizer just couldn't get to it because the defender didn't look back for the ball and just got in his way, which is shitty. But I guess when you're 0-13 or 0-12, you just don't get many calls.
Yeah, so. It's. I mean, it's so frustrating because I don't know. Like you said, we've said this all year that we're eternal optimists, and it's like it's so frustrating. And yet, you think at every single moment, I know how frustrating it is to watch this team, but also at every moment, I'm thinking that like the tides are gonna turn, and like they're gonna, like Josh Gordon's gonna break this tackle or whatever, or like Kizer's gonna just like march them down the field and eat up, like 10 minutes of clock and kick a field goal, then it's game over. But that just, it never seems to happen.
We even said, Bill, you and I were talking, and a couple other people were talking during the game. We even said, because they looked so good on offense in the first half.
Right.
We were like, it's hard to even get excited because you know that chances are, and this was before anything happened, before the second half at all, we said, it's just like, I want to be so excited, but I feel like inevitably there's letdown coming at the end of this game. And sure as shit, at the end of the game, we were let down. It's just like, watching it, you have a hard time like really getting excited, even though like, oh my gosh, when Kizer was just beaming the ball around to Corey Coleman and Josh Gordon and David Njoku and the running game got going and the defense it's just like, damn, this is what other teams get to watch week in and week out, like competent football.
Right.
And so it was just, that was like a tease for me because in the first half.
I know, it's like, even when we had that 21-7 lead for a lot of the third quarter, and into just barely into the fourth quarter, I still had that gut-wrenching feeling, and I was just like, I know like they're gonna at least score another touchdown, and then that means that we are only one mistake away, or they're only one touchdown away from tying the game. Yeah. And it was like, you could just...
It's almost like you knew it was coming. Yeah. You knew that was coming. But I will say this, though. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, so if we were gonna, we're 0-13 at this point.
That wasn't Aaron Rodgers, if you didn't know that.
No, I know, but if somehow Aaron Rodgers took the Packers to the playoffs and they made a deep run in the playoffs, it'd be pretty epic, like historically.
Oh no, no NFC team wants to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs.
Yeah,
he is.
So it would be really cool, Browns aside, which I don't say often, but Browns aside, it would be really cool to see like Brent Hundley kind of weathered the storm, and then the ace up the sleeve came back in and just ran through the playoffs. But I don't see it happening. I think there's too many good teams in the NFC, but it would be really cool to see.
Right. So great. Great transition there. Unless you were going to say something else.
No.
Okay.
No, that was it.
Great transition there. Speaking of other teams in the AFC or NFC, go back to your boys, Lombardi's homeland, the Wentz wagon. It busted a wheel this Sunday.
Oh man!
What did you think about that? As he's been compared to Cleveland ever since they traded down to not take him.
Well, I would trade having 11 wins and a hurt Carson Wentz every day of the week for what we've seen.
Right.
So, it just sucks because for whatever reason, I think I just like am unable to cheer for any AFC team.
Yeah.
I just naturally think the NFC teams are so much more exciting. Like, I can name 5 NFC teams that I like to watch play off the top of my head, and I can't name like one other AFC team that I legitimately enjoy watching
Right.
play.
Like even like the top teams like New England and the Steelers are kind of like they just grit and grind through games, and it's not really like too exciting. It's almost like the East and the West of the NBA. Like the East, they have the Cavs, but like these other teams I'd never watch. But the West has like the Houston and the Warriors and that, and it's kind of like I don't know, the glitz and glams out there, and we just have the blue collar teams over here or something.
Right. No, you're exactly right. So there's several teams I like to watch on that side. And honestly, I lived in Philly for a little bit, so I have some friends out there that are huge Philly fans. And across the spectrum of all sports, I am a little biased towards Philly. Yeah. So when Cleveland was so shitty this year and Philly was on a run with Carson Wentz, first of all, aside from Philly, you can't not like Carson Wentz. He's just such a good guy and like such an easy person to cheer for. And then pair
top
that
20
with,
Gruden camp.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. But then pair it with the fact of Philly being a kind of a similar fan base and having lived out there, I was pulling for them so hard to make a run at the Super Bowl. Because I thought that he was so fun to watch play because he can do it all. He's got a laser arm. He's mobile, all this stuff. But, now, my Philly friends, they're staying positive. But I just don't think Nick Foles is going to get it done. So I think I honestly think they'll probably be bounced first round of the playoffs. But nonetheless, Carson Wentz is going to be the premier I guess the upper echelon of the league for the next 15 years. So they have plenty more opportunities. That being said, side note, my pick now for the NFC, who I want to see make it far, is the LA Rams.
Oh yeah,
they're another fun team to watch on offense and defense. So I think they got some really exciting players, but that's my team to watch now. So
how shitty would it be to be a St. Louis Rams fan and like 2 years after they moved,
after you
they
put up
leave
with all
town,
that shit for
right. I mean, it's crazy to think that Watson. I mean, they probably would have got injured a lot earlier if they were on the Browns, but it's now that Watson and Wentz are gone, it's weird to think about. Like now, I guess it's kind of helps the Browns out in a sense of the national media because they can't say that, well, the Browns should take, you can't say like the Browns should take an injured player, like they should have taken an injured player. So that's kind of like a little weight off their back, but it is very weird. And it sucks that those two guys had, I mean, I think, I don't know how you feel about this, but I honestly think that Wentz should still win MVP. And Watson, if he maybe had made it to as far as Wentz did, he probably would have also won Rookie of the Year. But I mean, I couldn't really. I was trying to do some research. I couldn't find a stat of when the last time the front runner for Rookie of the Year and MVP went down with season-ending injuries. So this may be like the first time ever that the two front runners for that those categories have gone down.
Who else would even be in the running for MVP at this point?
I mean, I guess you have to throw in I don't know. You maybe throw in Tom Brady.
Of course.
But I don't know who the other guy. I don't know if Drew Brees is up there. Maybe.
Yeah.
I know
Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's been all quarterbacks. Peyton Manning won fucking 5-6 times. I think Antonio Brown is a dark horse that's getting some talk now that Wentz is out. But yeah, it's just all these injuries this year. My gosh, I mean Wentz off the Wentz wagon. Jason Peters was one of the best players for the Eagles too, and he went down earlier this year with an injury.
Yeah,
there's just so many guys. I mean, we've had Joe Thomas go out, and Drango's put up, some competent, game time in place of him, but it's just there's so many marquee guys in the NFL that are out this year. It just almost seems like now that Wentz has gone out, like who are we even really watching for? I mean, I know I'm not saying anything bad against the players that are left, but it's just kind of like puts a damper on this entire NFL season and these playoffs moving forward that we have to watch without some of the best guys that can play the game.
You know what the national media are missing here in their crucifixion of our analytics department prior to Sashi Brown getting fired.
Yeah.
And what Jimmy Haslam is also missing is the analytics department put together foolproof data that said, based off these data points, the Deshaun Watsons and Carson Wentz of the world are X amount more likely to tear their ACL. And look what happened.
Did they really? Are you bullshitting me with that, or?
No. That is data-driven, fact-based.
Wow.
The reason
I want to see the formula for the torque on the meniscus that they.
Exactly. That's why they didn't think. That's why they passed on them, because they said based off their historical performance, they run the ball too much. Statistics show that if you run the ball this much, get hit this much, that you're this percentage more likely to tear your ACL, and that's why they didn't take them, because they didn't want to invest a high draft. And look, they're gone now, but
Podesta's
right.
still there, right? He probably wrote the formula, but
it's just a complicated algorithm,
right? It's just
that's all.
You just use Amazon. If you click on enough, like Browns jerseys, it says like other people bought, and then it shows Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz jerseys, and not to draft those players. And then if you don't buy them, then you just 2 days later in the mail you get your bananas.
It's that simple. It's that simple. 2 words that drive me crazy in the NFL are phrases, I guess.
Yeah.
Draft capital.
Yeah.
When people are I'm like, just call it what it is. Draft picks.
Right.
Like, there's no capital involved. Stop trying to make it sound more than what it is. And the second is analytics, because I feel like when people don't really know what to say, but it involves numbers, they're just like, oh, it's analytics.
Right.
And I'm like, listen, every fucking NFL team is dealing with some sort of analytics. Now, how involved it is in the draft process, who knows? But I'm sure people, if your organization is not looking at like trends of like performance based on numbers, then I think you're missing out.
Right.
The other thing is, I was thinking this week how there's like, it seems to be this black and white thing of whether you're traditional football or analytics. And I'm like, I think
there doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Watch Moneyball. Like they still kept the scouts. And, and Brad Pitt and Jonah Carey were able to do their stuff, or Jonah Hill were able to do their stuff.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, I think what it boils down to is I think analytics give you the best chance at success, like of a high success rate from rounds like 4 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
But scouts, and maybe it might be 3 through 7, but scouts give you the best success rate or odds at success rate through rounds like 1 and 2, because I think like the premier players may not have all the analytics lined up, but you can just see it like when you watch them play.
Right.
Like they may be guys like
sometimes
Baker
their
Mayfield.
combine numbers won't be that great, but the scouts can be like, no, this guy's going to be like a first round pick. Yeah,
but like in rounds 3 through 7, I think it's more based on like, okay, these guys play. We're not talking Power 5 conferences. We're talking every school, and here's the numbers that have historically succeeded. So I was just thinking about that this week, and I was like, I wonder if there's any truth to that. I don't know that we'll ever know, but I just think that you have analytics is probably more driven towards like the later rounds, starting at round 3, whereas like round 1 and 2, I think those top 64 players or whatever, you can probably identify them whether you have any analytics or not. Like, you can probably identify what you would consider the best 32 to 64 players in college football pretty easily.
Yeah, I
think you and I, if our full-time job was, or even part-time job was to watch film, I think we could probably identify 64 players who were, like, stood out to us.
Right. It's not hard to pick out the top college talent or whatever. Yeah, it's not too hard to really pick out, the very top elite guys. It's differentiating between, like, is this guy, when it starts to get down to, like, is this guy worth, like, the third pick in the third round, or can I wait until the fourth round and still get him? And it's like those decisions are where, like, a lot of these, a lot of these teams are really made, and the guys that make up a majority of successful teams are from. So, I mean, it would be interesting to also see how the Browns analyze their current players. Because, I mean, I look at some advanced stats and look at Football Outsiders and Pro Football Focus and all that stuff, and kind of get a feel for, like, how football nerds look at the game. But it'd be really interesting to be able to talk with someone that, like, kind of like, and they maybe use it for, I don't know what they even use it for. I mean, take the example of the Indians. They kind of had a Moneyball situation before the A's had Moneyball, and they had a computer program that told them that, well, at age 33, a player really starts declining. And so that was they used that to not re-sign Jim Thome, because he had just finished, like, his age 32 season, and he wanted, like, a 5-year, 6-year extension, and they were like, no, we're not going to do that, because we're thinking about the future of the team. Even though it was probably really hard for them to let a guy like that go, they were able to use those analytics in that system. So it'd be really interesting to see if the Browns have something like that. I feel like it's easier in the NFL to tell when a guy is really deteriorating. Obviously, like, if a guy is 33, you're probably not going to try and sign him to a 4 or 6 year contract unless you're the Arizona Cardinals. But
do you think Kenny Britt is a deteriorating project player?
Well, one, he's not a project anymore. He's a broken instrument. He's a pawn shop instrument. And two, not even Chumley is going to give you a deal for Kenny Britt at the pawn shop.
John Dorsey became my immediate hero when he cut Kenny Britt.
So before you cut into my segment here, but
oops.
Good. Okay, we got a good news, bad news segment. What do you want to hear first? The good news or the bad news?
Always the bad.
Always to the bad news first. All right, so it's officially the death of winning 4 of the last 8. Do you have a tattoo of that yet? Did you get a tattoo of that?
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up, Bill, because for literally probably 20 weeks or 16 weeks since we started this podcast, I've been holding out. And, it's just not for our awesome listeners. Personally, I've been holding out because I truly believed we had a shot at winning 4 games this year. And now we have officially been taken out of that contention. That was I know I probably said early on 6 or 7 games is what I thought we could win, but truly in my heart, I thought that, if we win 4 games, that's a big step up. And if we're going to win 4 sometime,
it's going to be,
I wanted to win 4 of the last 8. I mean, without saying I've given up complete hope on winning a single game this year, I've given up hope on winning a single game this year. I'm just like, at this point, what does it even matter? Like, I don't think it changes much. I mean, like, if you win 4, and this may be overthinking it, but if you win 4 games, that's a quarter of the season. So I think you go out with some momentum, but at this point, I think people's minds are already made up. Like,
right. I mean,
I think the coaches are looking towards next season. Obviously, the GM's looking towards next season. The owner's looking towards next season. So it's like, do I think if Kizer comes out and plays awesome the next 3 games and wins, they're not going to take a quarterback first overall? No, I don't. I think they still will.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, you're right, Bill. That's bad news. It's heartbreaking for me because I was really optimistic, but hit me with the good news.
All right.
Hit me with the good news.
First of all, I want to say that now that that's dead, now the Browns are more likely to host the perfect season, the perfect season in quotes parade, than your initial prediction of 4 of the last 8. So, are you going to go to that if that does happen?
Oh, I mean, I think I have to.
I think so. I think you got to record
How
some
could I not?
clips for the pod. Have some drunken Cleveland guys yell about how they set the parade up. So on to the good news. Kenny Britt is gone.
He gone. 10 weeks overdue, maybe more. Maybe 12 weeks overdue.
Maybe a fully, put him on the back of that jersey with all the Browns quarterbacks and just say Kenny Britt should have never been here.
I am so happy, and, I tried to give Kenny Britt the benefit of the doubt early on because, you know what, at the end of the day, I like to see the best in people.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost one of my players to watch in, week 2.
Yeah, and it was such a non-fit, it was unbelievable. And that's what I loved about, I just read an article today about John Dorsey, and he's been on a media tour since he got, and that's apparently pretty typical of new GMs that they'll, do more just at the beginning, do more press conferences, do some radio shows. So John Dorsey has been on the local Cleveland radio stations this week, ESPN radio. He's also been on the Cleveland Browns in-house podcast, which is called Cleveland Browns Daily with Nathan Segura and Matt Wilhelm. He's also been on that. And they've been asking him legitimate questions about what do you think the previous regime has done wrong? What made your decision to cut Kenny Britt? And when his response to
that was the easiest answer he had all day.
Exactly. He was honest. His response was honestly cutting Kenny Britt was easy. He said, he didn't fit here culturally.
Yeah.
He didn't produce. He was, without coming out and saying he was a cancer in the locker room like we've been saying, he said he didn't make any sense here, and that was a really easy call for me to make. And I was like, thank you.
Right.
You're exactly right.
I wonder how he feels about the Joe Hayden cut from earlier in the year.
Yeah.
If he ever addressed that,
Yeah, it would be really interesting to get his thoughts. We probably never will.
No.
But, whenever, at some point we're going to have an outlook to the 2018 season, Bill. And all this time, I've been thinking that we're going to have right now, as it stands, we're going to have $60 million worth of cap space based on current contracts. But that doesn't take into account our expiring contracts at the end of the year.
Right.
So I just looked it up, and Cleveland, as we talked about last week, is going to have, $60 million, where 2/3 of the NFL probably has $12 million or less in cap space. Well, once our expiring contracts from this year come up, we'll have closer to $100 million in cap space.
That's crazy.
And it probably requires to sign all 12 of our draft picks. If we actually use all those picks, probably cost, I don't know, $12 to $15 million.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have $80 million worth of cap space to sign people. So I know we won't get into that now, but I'm not kidding. With the core, the foundation that I think we have right now, and I may sound ignorant because I feel like every Browns fan says this every year, but I think we can add 8 starters to this team.
That's crazy.
This next year, but we won't talk about who or when. But potentially, in addition to the cap space, we could. It's not unreasonable to think that we could have a top 3 picks. If we lose out and the Texans lose out and a couple teams win, we could have picks 1 and 3.
Right.
So which would be insane. So I don't want to get into players yet, but
yeah,
I do think that I'm a big fan of John Dorsey. I think he was a really great hire for Jimmy Haslam, and everyone who's killing Jimmy Haslam, guess what? He's the one who paid $1 billion for the team. So
right.
if it takes him,
wants to
10 turn over the GM every year and a half, guess what? It's not you, Peter King, that paid $1.2 billion for the team. It's Jimmy Haslam. So you can shut your mouth. Even though I really like Peter King, but he beats up on Cleveland like everyone does.
To speak maybe, I don't know if this is, this is definitely not 100% against Haslam, but maybe like a quarter of criticism against Haslam is that he brought in Sashi Brown and DePodesta to basically tank and trust the process.
Yeah.
And then not even 3 years after that, he's not trusting the process anymore. I know that was one of the things that DePodesta has said several times. There's at least quotes in several different articles about him saying that, like, when he first started at the Browns, Haslam asked him what he wanted out of an owner. And DePodesta had said, well, I can't really think of that. I know what I don't want, and that's for an owner to quit halfway through the process once they reach a certain point where they get so scared that they think the only thing is to quit. And it kind of seemed like, I mean, for one, yeah, Haslam fired Sashi because he wanted to start winning games and he thought Sashi had missed on like that cornerstone franchise quarterback, even though Sashi thought that like none of those guys were really worth choosing because Browns needed players everywhere else, basically. But it just seems like, why would you hire a guy like Sashi if you weren't ready? As we spoke last episode, he was a lawyer for the Jaguars before the Browns hired him. Why would you hire a guy like that if you weren't ready and willing to completely like tank and follow the process?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I don't really get from the situation is like, why if Haslam really wanted to just let those guys work their approach, their Moneyball approach, and let it shake out for 5 years and then, axe them or whatever, I think that makes much more sense than saying like, okay, you guys have the reins, like, go all analytics and then be like, whoa, that's like, I don't know. It just seems that part seems wishy-washy to me, that he really wanted to trust the process, but then was like, well, I don't really think I should do this anymore. Like, he should have.
No, I think that's a good point, and it makes you wonder if him and Sashi had a talk where it's like, you know what? I don't care about the record for the next 2 years. I want assets.
Yeah.
I want assets. Because it wouldn't be the craziest thing to think that it's like, hey, let's not mind a football guy right now. I think one of the only things that Jimmy Haslam has been consistent about since his ownership is that to build sustainable success, between all of his regimes, he said you have to build your foundation through the draft. So, I mean, without getting too into conspiracies, you just wonder if he took a guy like Sashi, knowing that he has no business picking players per se, like over time, and just said, look, your role over the next 2 years is to get us as many, like your number one priority is to get us as many draft picks for the 2018 draft as you can.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to pick more players in the process, so I'll leave that to you also. It just makes you wonder because I don't think that Jimmy Haslam is a smart enough business guy that, he couldn't have, and maybe he did, I don't know, fully believed that you could take a lawyer from Jacksonville and a lawyer and make him into a scout overnight. Like I think they've been very adamant or very transparent in saying that, John Dorsey's number one priority, number one goal is to add a quarterback or get a quarterback or two or fix the quarterback position.
Right.
Maybe Sashi Brown's number one priority was to accumulate draft picks. We don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
And maybe it's not like he's hurting. He still gets paid for the 4 years of his contract. So what's it to him that he doesn't have a job anymore at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. But let me put this number out there. I know we're going to talk a bunch in the off season about Brown's outlook, and we'll have some draft specials and everything like that. But the Browns cap space before re-signing anyone that expires in 2018, $117 million in cap space. Is just. Wow. I mean, it should be. Is that if we franchise Kirk Cousins, is that what he is at right now? Is 117? I mean,
no, but I think the cap hit every year is whatever his annual salary would be. So like, let's just say we signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal worth $150 million, and let's say half of that was guaranteed. So $75 million was guaranteed.
Yeah,
we'd have a $75 million, to my knowledge, I don't know how it all works, but I think we'd have a $75 million cap hit this year. Okay. And then the next 3 years of his contract would only be whatever his guaranteed dollars are. So if he has a $150 million deal and 75 are like guaranteed up front, and then 5 are guaranteed per year for the next 3 years, and the rest are all based on like completing the season, blah blah blah. We could sign Kirk Cousins to wherever we wanted, and we could still sign 4 to 5 other quality starters.
Yeah, if I was GM, I would go hard after Kirk Cousins and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
That would be my two. Maybe you throw in some other guys that are mid-level guys, but if you've got all that money, go after those guys.
Yeah.
Go after those guys. I don't think, I don't know if Landry really wants to play in Cleveland, but he definitely wants to get out of that Miami situation. So. Yeah,
and that's the other thing. And I think we have a good shot at signing Kirk Cousins too, because I think he's proven time and time again that he's about the money.
Yeah.
And I'm all right with that. Like, all right, if it's about the money, hey, it's about the money for us too. Don't expect us to crown you king of the city. But, in my perfect world, just briefly, I think, you sign a guy like Kirk Cousins, then with 2 top 7 picks in the draft, you go, if you can get, Barkley and you can get Fitzpatrick, who's a stud safety / corner, those are 2 probably, not just solid starters, but potential Pro Bowlers. I think you have and you don't trade around. You have the potential to realistically get 6 to 8 impact starters in this offseason.
Yeah.
And you pair if you sprinkle those guys in with what we already have on offense and defense, and then, man, it's exciting.
I know, it really is.
And yeah.
What about Breeze? How'd you feel if the Browns got Breeze for a couple years?
I don't think he'd ever come here.
He would never.
And I don't think, I know you're a Purdue fan, Bill, but I don't think I'd want him because he's only ever played in San Diego and a dome in New Orleans. So I just don't think he's built for the AFC North. I think he would. I love the guy.
Oh yeah, he's. I don't think he would come to but I do kind of think his time maybe in New Orleans is over. I feel like I've heard there's been some rumors that him and Sean Payton, this may be their last little run together in New Orleans. So
yeah, well, I'd rather have Sean Payton honestly. Fire Hugh and get Sean Payton, but I think obviously you can connect the dots. I think it's more likely that we would, if we're going to sign a veteran, you sign Alex Smith. But
right.
I just wish we had Josh McKown back. I wish we could have
I mean,
I wish we could have Kirk Cousins, Josh McKown, and DeShone Kizer in our QB room. Because I think Kizer is going to be the real deal. I still really do. But if he learns from McKown, sits behind Cousins, even if Kizer becomes a third string quarterback,
right.
you know, and sits behind Cousins, McKown, God,
I know. I mean, you look at the Jets versus the Browns.
He's only 21.
Right.
Kizer's 21 years old.
Yeah, you look at the Jets versus the Browns lineup, and it's like, the Browns are probably more talented than the Jets. What's the difference between 0 wins and 5 wins? And it's like, well, they have like a veteran quarterback.
That's it, man.
You know, that he knows how to finish games. He knows how to, like, he's just been there for, like, 13 years or however many years Josh McKown's played. And it's real bummer that maybe that was one of the, like, regrets that we'll have this season, looking back from what we did wrong last season, was, you know, probably letting him and Mitchell Schwartz go. Yeah. So those are probably two of the...
it's funny you say that, because I just read an article today also from Doug Maurice.
Yes.
He's a Cleveland guy. I don't know if you know him, but I'm a fan of his.
I'm friends. I know of the Maurice.
Yeah. And he was like a 5-step guide or a 6-step guide to how to get excited about the Browns again.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said one of the steps were forget about all the guys who could have been, because it's been 2 years now since Mitchell Schwartz, DeShaun Gibson, Alex Mack, all those guys could have been re-signed.
Yeah.
Travis Benjamin.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, just give it up. Like, it's not worth your breath to say, hey, I wish we had those guys, because they're not coming back. Right. And that was one of the things that I took away. And what was the other one? He said, this I think is important and we should talk about it a little bit. He said, Hugh Jackson cannot ruin this team. He said the team is just too inexperienced and too talent, you know, depleted for Hugh Jackson to ruin it. Now, I don't necessarily 100% agree with that. I think if Hugh were, you know, a premier coach and fully developed as a head coach, we would have won a few games that we've lost this year. But that being said, I do think he is a good head coach. I wouldn't say great. You know, that's as far as I'll take it right now. I think overall he's good. And I hope next year at this time we're saying, you know, give a guy some talent and look what he can do.
Right.
But I mean, at this point,
at the very least, you know, he seems to have kept the guys in the locker room completely motivated. I mean, you know, I think the Browns players probably want to win more for themselves and their teammates than they do anyone else right now. But, you know, part of it has to go on the coaching staff, and especially Hugh, who has gotten, I mean, especially for Kizer. I mean, he's really seems to, at least in what he says in the press conferences and everything, he really seems to have taken Kizer under his wing. And I know Kizer has struggled a lot to forget about turnovers and bad decisions as soon as they happen, because you need to be able to have a clear mind to think about the next play that you're going to make. And I think that Hugh has really done a good job of calming Kizer down, getting him to process those plays, obviously, because you need to know what you did wrong, but then to quickly move on and you know, get ready for the next drive or get ready for the next play or whatever it may be. So I really applaud him for that and keeping this team together up until this point. I mean, the way that everyone talks leading up to games, they all expect to win still. Like you said, I don't know if he's, you know, I would say he's a competent coach right now. He's not a good coach. At this point, he needs to prove himself to be a good coach, and then maybe that can, along with some talent, can turn into being a decent, you know, top 10 coach or so in the NFL.
Bill, don't we have to give you a little love for picking your players to watch last week?
Yeah.
Didn't they show out a little bit?
Give me the love.
Who are your players?
Give me the love. I had Kindred, and what was my? Oh, I had the Browns defense forcing punts in the first half.
Yes, that's right.
That was
right.
That was. I was going to say that. I was thinking about that earlier, and it was like that was one of my small takeaways of just pleasure and bliss from last game against Packers was just watching the defense force punts in the first half.
And I noticed that too. I was like, we just talked about that on the pod, so it's good to see that they had two first half punts.
Well, I think one was in the first quarter, and then they had at least another one in the first half.
However, so props to you for that. However, on your Kindred pick, Kindred was all over the broadcast.
Yes.
However, I feel like he missed 3 sacks. If he could have wrapped up and tackled, he would have had 3 sacks in that game.
Yeah,
or tackles for loss.
Yeah, there were a couple of just like shoulder hits he tried to get.
There was so many missed tackles in that game. I was dumbfounded.
I feel like I watched that. I feel like that happens a lot in NFL games where I see just like players go for like it could easily the running back could have or whatever it is, the running back could have easily stopped for like a 7-yard gain, and the cornerback or whoever comes in and just tries to like give him a shoulder hit, knock him out of bounds, and then the running back like gathers his feet, spins around, and then is off for like a 35-yard gain. That happens all the time. It seems like in today's NFL.
Yeah. So anyway, shout out to you because you picked 2 really good.
Without picking Njoku, I had good players to watch.
Well, good thing you didn't because he didn't do shit this week. But
besides
drop the most pivotal ball of the game. But hey, whatever.
You know, it's whatever. It was the ball that was punted that was the most pivotal in my opinion. But anyways, that was our. I guess that wraps up our good news, bad news section. We wrapped, we kind of skewed away from the good news, bad news part, but I just wanted to throw out some advanced stats. These are some, at least, 0-13 at this point, but the Browns do have some positive outlook, advanced stat-wise, and I'm kind of a nerd about this, so I just wanted to go and say that, they have the 7th ranked rushing offense, according to Football Outsiders DVOA. They have the number 1 rushing defense, which is amazing. They've been number 1 basically, I'd say after the first 4 weeks or so shake out where you can't really determine too many correlations and stats or whatever. They've been number 1 except for 1 week they were 2. This is my favorite stat. We are finally not the worst team defending number 1 wide receivers. So we're moving up in the world, 28th in the NFL in defending wide receivers. Still last against tight ends, which those are the two slots that always seem to just kill Browns.
Yeah.
We're also Kizer's completing 11.3 yards per completion, which is a very good. I think Lombardi, or shout outs to Lombardi again, but I'm pretty sure that 9 is the 9 yards per completion is the number that you want a good quarterback to be around. And so I think, Deshaun Watson I couldn't find a good list on this in the NFL, but Deshaun Watson led the NFL with 13 yards per completion. And Kizer's at 11.3, so he's definitely
up there.
He's definitely up there in terms of yards per completion. And that's all the advanced stats I had for this week. But let's move on to our game preview. Shouts to anyone. Actually, we're at the. I started recording a little bit before we actually got into it, but we're at the close to the hour mark, and we are just about to talk about the upcoming game, which the Here We Go Cleveland podcast crew, which is literally just me and Michael, we're going up to Cleveland, to Pound Town, to play with the Ravens, Browns at Ravens. We got seats in the 504. Come shout us out. Boys from the 419 up to the 504. Is that where we're getting t-shirts made, or?
Hell yeah. It's gonna be lit. I hope you guys are ready.
Awesome.
Because there's gonna be like at least a dozen people there to watch this game, because it's supposed to be like 41 and a nice wintry mix of rain and snow, which is always great.
Perfect.
When it's wet and cold. So yeah, it's gonna be good. Last home game of the season, so God, how good it would be to see them go off with a win. They're gonna have a tough task with the Ravens, but what do you got at the line, Bill? What do you got on the line?
The Ravens are favored by a touchdown in this game.
A touchdown even?
Even touchdown.
That's easy then. For me, that's easy.
What do we got here?
I'm definitely taking the Ravens.
Yeah, taking the Ravens. I think this cold weather means that Joe Flacco, and you said the wintry Cleveland mix, I don't know if it's lake effect snow, but I always think it's lake effect snow, whatever happens up there. But I think with that cold weather, I think the Ravens quarterback, Joe Flacid, is going to be extra flaccid this game, and it's an AFC matchup, or AFC North matchup, which I really think at this point in the year you can kind of throw your head or throw everything just out of the kind of in the gutter, and I'm picking the Browns to cover this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, since we're going to the game, I don't really want to see it turn into be like the Baltimore or the Buffalo Indianapolis Blizzard game, because I'm not planning on bringing that many layers. And you'll find me at a bar at halftime if it gets to be that bad.
Yeah.
But
seriously.
I think these AFC North matchups, late in the year, I don't think are the Ravens still in playoff contention?
Yeah, they are. I think so.
So they have that going for them, but I mean, I really think that the Browns are just itching for a win so bad that that they'll at least make it very competitive. And they have made these games all year.
Especially the second half
very
of the
competitive.
year.
Yeah, second half of the year, they've really, this is what'll be the third game in a row, or third game now that Gordon will be out there as a target. I really think our offense has played exceptionally well. And it looks like, Danny Shelton's going to be back for this week. So that's really going to help out on the defensive side. He's my player to watch this week, coming back from his injury, and to see how he shores up that rushing game that is, the top-ranked defense in according to Football Outsiders. So I do have the Browns covering, which I think would bring them to like 3-11 against the spread this year.
Wow.
But,
well,
horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
That you chose them to at least cover, because I hope you're right and that I'm wrong, because I would like to see a really competitive game. Just so everyone knows, the quick segment about weekly ticket prices.
Yes.
Bill and I paid a smooth $6 for each of our 5 tickets that I purchased and 6 tickets that Bill purchased. So after all the bullshit taxes, I think mine ended up being like $12 a piece. But
yeah, when the service, usually the service fee is like $10 or $15 on like a $60 ticket, but the service fee was like half of the ticket price at $7. It was like $3.50 or something like that. So,
nonetheless, still a good deal, because usually you can't touch NFL games for that. So
I think these were going like $47 regular for their seats. So thanks to whoever just literally willing to throw these away in the trash, and then thought, no, I'm going to pick those up and put them on StubHub.
Right.
So,
pretty much is what happened.
Yeah.
My player to watch on defense would be anyone who can create a turnover. It feels like it's been forever. I can't remember one like legitimate interception we've had in the last.
Remember that McCourty one where he had like a 30-yard return? But
but it was garbage. It was garbage time, garbage points. So I just want to see, someone get an interception or get a fumble recovery or force a fumble that so I'm just going to say, I'm going to challenge all the defense to just get us a turnover. And, I hate saying this, but to me, Myles Garrett has been unimpressive. He really has been. All year long, I've just been waiting for him to make one impact play per game. I'm not saying a sack. I'm not saying a tackle for loss. I'm just saying somehow make one impact play a game. I've honestly seen more from Agba when he was here.
Yeah.
And Carl Nassib. This past game, I saw more from Carl Nassib than I saw from Garrett. So I would just say to him, let's see it. Let's see it. So I would say if I had to pick a player, it's going to be Myles Garrett to make an impact this week. But other than that, it's just the defense overall. On offense, I really would like to see Isaiah Crowell have another 120-yard rushing day, because I think, especially if it's wet and cold, I think that could be the difference. He had a hell of a game, underrated game.
Really did.
This past week. I think he averaged over 6 yards a carry, because he had 19 carries for, I think he had, probably 18 carries for 130 yards. So pretty close to right at around six yards a carry. But, I'd love to see him follow that up, but anyone who can make it happen. I hope the offense is finally getting to that point where it's exciting to watch. So,
it really is. Yeah, it really is. And, Crowell's coming up. He could hit, just looking at some potential milestones as we close in on the season. He's at 716 yards right now. So, I don't think the Ravens' rush defense is really that ferocious, and the Bears definitely isn't. So he could potentially.
How many yards is he at?
716. So if he puts in, a couple more 100-yard games, he's looking at around 80 yards or so to have against the Steelers to have 1,000 yards rushing. I don't think anyone else is really close. Duke Johnson's 3 yards away from being a 500-yard receiver, but no one else is really close to any kind of good milestone like that.
Yeah.
I know. Schobert, he's up there in the leaders for tackles for any kind of defensive player. So I think him and Kirksey were 2 and 3 in solo tackles for loss, or something like that. I saw a stat the other day. So, like I said, my defensive player guy to watch is Danny Shelton to come back this week. Offensive player, he had a rough game last week, and I haven't picked him for a while. But I want to see Njoku really come through. He showed his potential. 2 weeks ago, he had that touchdown catch, and he got a lot of press coverage, at least on the Browns media front wise, and talked about how he had even yet to reach his potential for being the player. Which I don't know why you make that statement as a rookie. Obviously you're not. You haven't reached your potential as a player, but he seems to be open, and they seem to really like running those streak or tight end fly routes, whatever they're calling them. They just send him up the middle against a linebacker, and he just needs to make a couple more plays. And he seems to always be, especially when the Browns are down around the end zone, once every 2 games or so. It seemed to always, ball seems to find his hands. The one wish that I do have for this game is that I wish the Browns do not throw a fade play if they get when Joe Thomas retires and they retire his jersey and they name the stadium Joe Thomas Stadium and they become the Joe Thomas Browns, they also need to retire the fade play.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, it should be retired 3 years ago when where's the analytics on that? Sashi and DePodesta, how
Seriously.
are you should be yelling at Hugh that he's still running that stupid play that never works.
Yeah, hanging up in the rafters, the fade play, the fade route.
Yeah.
Retired. No one can ever run it again.
It's like no, I'm not gonna say that. I think that wraps it up for us. So you've got the Ravens winning by at least a touchdown. I say the Browns are gonna sneak in there and, still having the Ravens win. But I mean, as we both go up, we definitely, as fans, I mean, gosh, if we were there to witness the first win of this season, that'd be awesome.
A division foe, yeah, it'd be great.
Man. Then we could start, we could get 3 of the last 8 tattoos. I'm getting a 3 of the last 8 if they win tomorrow. Tattoo on my ass.
All right. Deal.
Hold me to that.
Deal.
But we've got a whole slew of people coming up, with us, other just Shelbyans and Browns heads. So it's going to be a fun time. Cold, perfect football weather, but I don't know if any fan actually likes watching football in football weather.
Yeah. I just hope it's not raining the entire. I can handle the snow. I can handle everything else. But you know what? We'll find out.
We'll find out. We're out there up in the elements, up in the 504. So, Michael, as always, it was great talking with you this week. If you have any,
I'll see you Sunday, Bill.
Yeah, we'll see you Sunday.
Pumped.
Do you have any last shout outs before I talk about our SoundCloud and everything? Where to find us?
I don't.
Okay.
I do not.
I'm shouting out a negative myself, my anti-self, because I need to stop saying shout out so much this podcast. I think I said it at least 5 or 6 times.
Nope. Shout out to your excessive shout out.
Shout outs to the shout outs. All right, but I like how we, if you made it this far, you should clap to yourself that you made it this far, and subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever the hell else you can find podcasts. Just Google "Here We Go Cleveland." We come up everywhere. I want to, we're not sponsored by anything, but want to give a plug for Joe Thomas's new podcast. What a great listen that is. It's kind of what is up with these podcasts, this professional podcast being started in Cleveland with the Road Trippin' podcast last year, and now Joe Thomas just sitting down with everyone. I tried to sneak in his Twitter DMs and see if he would do a joint podcast with us, but I'm still waiting on the answer. He hasn't read my tweet yet.
He hasn't read it.
No.
It's just a matter of time. We'll get him.
It is.
We'll get him.
It is. But
the first podcast in the NFL ever. Isn't that what it's called?
First podcast in NFL history.
Oh, yeah. NFL history, yeah. Leave it to Joe Thomas.
Yeah,
love it.
Man.
Love it.
What a great guy. What a great podcast. Second best Browns podcast to us. And then third would be the Cleveland Browns Daily. Those are official AP rankings. So, all right, that's it for this week. We'll see you Sunday, Michael. We'll see everyone else next Thursday. All right.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.